Welcome, everyone, to another Wisdom Within event. Hi, Catherine.
Hi, good to be here.
So, this week we thought that we'd talk about how to be there for yourself,
Mm,
which I thought was a really good subject to talk about, especially what's going on in the world. But actually, this subject is so important for everyone, male, female, children, whatever it is, all of the time, isn't it? And I thought I'd start off by saying that most people, when they think about being there for themselves, they sort of gauge that on the outside world, don't they? Their needs are sort of, if I can have that, then I'm going to feel okay. If I can have that house or that job or that girl or that boy or whatever it is, then I'm going to be okay. And we're talking about how we want to be there for ourselves inside ourselves. We don't need to rely on anything outside. So what do you think about that, Catherine?
yeah, I love that. I love that you're making that distinction right off the bat, Marion, because we receive a lot of conditioning early on that tells us we have to get those outside things in order to feel happy and content and okay. And the funny thing that we come to discover is that the opposite is true, that when we're there for ourselves emotionally and psychologically and spiritually, then the less we need from the outside. Excuse me. So yeah, it's a great place to it's great to be discussing that because this is such an extreme time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the more that we're here for ourselves, the more okay we can be, regardless of how extreme the circumstances are that we're in. So I think it's a beautiful time for this discussion. It's a beautiful thing to be exploring at any time in your life. The earlier, the better, but it's such a rich topic, particularly now.
And I guess also it's a rich topic for people who are going through divorce or have lost their jobs right now, or, it's, as human beings, we all have to learn this, and it's not a trick, but this knowing of how to be there for ourselves, first and foremost. And then we can be there for other people.
Beautiful. And again, you just nailed it. The more we're actually grounded in our own experience and how to be there for ourselves, from that place, we have something to offer the world around us.
Yeah.
We have a very wonderful foundation then to engage with the world around us and engage with the people in our lives that we'd like to have relationships with, whether that's our family or it's an intimate partner or our work colleagues. So now, I'm 56 and probably up until 50, I had this backwards, or, maybe.
I definitely did, yeah.
Well, we receive a lot of conditioning that focuses us outside. I mean, it's innocently, our parents did too. And, so for me, by the time I was in my mid-teens, I think I was almost 100% focused. How do I get from the outside what I need to feel good and okay in my life? And so, how do I be what someone else wants me to be so that I can get love and appreciation and approval from them, because that will make me happy, apparently. So I thought. So that's a complete focus of, and you can hear in that I was under the impression that I needed to be something in particular that was pleasing to others. And we all know that we get that innocently at a young age, to some degree or another, from the parenting that we're exposed to. So when I do this, I get love. When I do that, I don't. It's withdrawn from me. So that's in a nutshell, right, Marion?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I just, as I was reflecting on this, I just, again, I'm so grateful for our conversations, because it really drops me into a place of gratitude for where I am now in my life. And I was thinking the best way for me to approach it was, I was in my midlife before I realized that I wasn't there for myself.
Mm-hmm.
You see, it was so unconscious. I didn't really know what it meant to be there for myself. What I knew was I was living my life for everyone else, and it didn't feel nourishing. And it didn't feel like I was living the life that I was here to live. Now, that was no one else's fault. But all of a sudden, I woke up at some point and realized I was doing things that I didn't really want to do. And I was engaged in activities that didn't really feel nourishing and fulfilling to me. Now, that's a really jarring thing to wake up to. But it was a really necessary part of my awakening and growth as a human being and as a woman. So as I was reflecting on it, I thought, wow, like for most of my life, that was all unconscious.
Yes.
Living the life trying to be who I thought I should be, and doing the things that mostly other people wanted me to do, because I'd lost touch with my own inner sense of who I was, who I wanted to be in the world. What was it that I wanted my life to be about?
It's so true, because I was the same as you.
Yeah.
And it's searching for that feeling sometimes as well outside of yourself. So the feeling of being happy, the feeling of being needed, all those sorts of feelings that we look out for. But actually, the moment that I started seeing that, the more I went inside myself and made choices and decisions, I suddenly started feeling more powerful, more grounded, more connected. And it was that thing where I think one day, and I don't know whether this makes sense actually, but I remember thinking one day that when I'm being selfish, actually, when I was what I was looking for on the outside, I needed to look for on the inside, and the things that I was looking for on the inside actually were on the outside. And it was like this complete paradox. My life turned upside down. And I because it was like turning everything on its head that you've ever known. When you're brought up and you're taught, aren't you, Catherine, to look outside of yourself, that when you're crying, you get food put in your mouth. You know, if you scream enough, you get attention. If you're a good girl, you get attention from the outside. So it's when somebody starts telling you, actually, that's completely wrong, you've got it completely wrong, you need to start looking inside you. We don't really know what that means. And I'd love you to talk about what that means, because I understand it, but I'd love to hear you.
Yeah, you're so right about that. And I can say from my own personal journey, I heard those words. Something in me knew that they were true, but I didn't have any lived experience of what that might actually be. Here's the beauty, though. We don't have to actually understand it. Our heart, like when we hear the truth, we recognize it even when we can't figure it out. So, right? So it's like I knew that I needed to discover within what I'd been seeking without, but I had no idea how to go about that.
Yeah.
Or so I thought. And yet I was drawn to certain things throughout my life. Okay. So the things that I was drawn to were planting seeds, or were waking something up within me, unbeknownst to me, because at some point I decided, okay, this isn't working. I'm in my mid-20s and I've got 2 failed marriages. Okay. Those rugs got pulled out from under my feet early, and I was a single parent. I thought, well, okay, I'm so busy seeking outside. I'm in my mid-20s. I'm really unhappy and depressed, and it's becoming really apparent that no one outside of me can take away this inner pain or suffering or whatever my own inner experience was. So something within me, I knew that I'd had it backwards, and I didn't have any idea how to start on that journey. but I made the commitment to start on it
Yeah.
anyway. And in that commitment and in that, and I was dense, again, I was not 30 yet, and I was divorced twice, and I had a child and was on my own. And so that was the big wake-up call for me, the second divorce. And I'm so grateful for it. And I'm so thankful, because it started me on the journey of self-awareness. And what I want people to know is, even the hope for me in this is that even though I didn't understand how to do it, I had the intention to learn to cultivate self-love and self-awareness. And so that journey started. And I believe that that can happen for each and every one of us, that we have this inner wisdom that will guide and direct us as soon as that's our intention. And so for me, Marion, it started, like, I started to notice at first how I wasn't speaking up when I had an opinion about something. See, this is the beginnings, the self-awareness. Oh, I have an opinion here, but I am not sharing that opinion. And that's something I recognized that went on, that had been my pattern. So the beginning of this was the awareness that my inner experience and my outer expression were very different. So I was suppressing and repressing my own opinion, my own voice, for the approval of whoever happened to be outside of me. Now, at first it was my parents, and then it was my partners, and so there was the journey. The beginning of it was recognizing that in many, many ways, I was trying to force myself to live a life that didn't feel joyful, that didn't feel meaningful. And I made a commitment to myself that I would take whatever action I needed to take to turn that around. And Marion, how and why do we make that change? Isn't that the big mystery? I think I heard that it was possible to be happy in this life. Maybe I read a book on Buddhism or waking up, or I read a book on self-development where a woman described something that sounded very similar to my own experience, and she was on the other side of it. And something within me knew that what she had done, I could also do if I made that choice and had that intention. And
for me, because awareness, absolutely 100% is listening to yourself. And for me also, for anyone that's listening or wants to know what the steps are, for me also, it was noticing when I was controlling, because I was very controlling.
Okay.
Because I was so insecure, I tried to control my environment and keep it tidy. And so I noticed when my body was sort of tightening up and trying to make those things happen. And so that was the intention. I remember putting the intention that I would work on control. And then I put an intention that I would work on judgment, because I just instinctively knew that I was judging people, but actually they were just like me. And the more that I saw that, the more that I stopped judging. And the next one was love. What does love look like? I think I know what love looks like, but I don't really. So what does that really mean? And I guess for lots of people, discovering these questions and being aware of them and what your body is looking. You said we start following, don't we? I started looking for ways that I could understand those more. And but I remember the moment, and it came like a light bulb moment, was I can go to as many courses as I want. I can go to all of these things, and actually I don't need any of them because all the answers are inside of me. And that was phenomenal to me. And by then I was working as a psychotherapist, you know, but it was
Yeah.
that aha moment of, wow, it's not anything outside of us.
Yeah, that's really beautiful because what's really interesting to me too, Marion, and we share similarities, but I want to go just refer back to what you said where it meant like you started to try and control your environment to deal with insecurity or fear. I was the opposite. I didn't try to control anybody. I pretended I didn't need anything from anybody. I wasn't, so the same. So, but I was really trying to manage my own insecurity.
Yeah.
I just had the opposite strategy as you.
And
And
we all do, don't we?
yeah, right. So somewhere along that continuum, but as long as it's a strategy
Yes.
to try and get what you want from outside of yourself, it will eventually fail because what we're looking for is within. And I think what's beautiful about the spiritual journey or the self-development journey or, just a return home to wholeness, this was all about, I abandoned myself, my internal wisdom, my internal knowing for the outside authority,
I love that.
a really natural thing, and maybe that's what we're here to do, to wake up from that conditioning in whatever way we are drawn to, and it takes courage because we have to let go of the familiar and step into the unknown. And once I recognized that my life did not feel fulfilling to me and that I was abandoning I would abandon my own preferences for someone else's preferences over and over again.
Definitely.
Until I didn't even know what my preferences were. Like I didn't think I even know. So
I was the best chameleon.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And then we deprive ourselves of a really rich, meaningful experience of love, and we deprive the world of who we really are. Because we're so busy, and it can be so innocent and it's a lot of this is unconscious. We're just trying to be good people. We're just trying to get along in life.
Yeah.
So, and I found out that the more I lived from an authentic place within, the more I had real and authentic relationships with the world around me. And the people who needed me to conform fell away. They felt threatened by me showing up in the world authentically and actually having an opinion. And I think the beautiful thing, so again, I think the steps might be a little bit different for each one of us, but similar. And as you said, everything begins with self-awareness. And for me, it was the awareness that I'd been living my life for other people, not in the positive sense of I'm in service, because I'd abandoned, who I really was authentically. So the irony was rediscovering that, reclaiming that, actually put me in a position where I was genuinely available to be of service to the people around me. And really grounded in who I was authentically in the world. You see, I think we each have a right to show up in the world as our genuine, authentic selves. And if we go on the journey of self-discovery, it's a journey, we've gone away from ourselves innocently through the conditioning that we've had in our lives. We've been out there in the world searching for love and appreciation and security. And something about this awakening process turns us around and brings us back home to ourselves. And in that journey of self-awareness, I think those inner resources start to wake up within us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And importantly, I think it is to say that I love how you describe that, Catherine, because it is about coming back to ourselves. And in my experience, I still, if it was like a road, and I'm driving down the road with the sun, in a beautiful car, beautiful, great music, and I suddenly start coming off it, and the road becomes very bumpy. I still do that a lot.
yeah.
But because I am aware now that I can go in within myself and find my inner resources, I come back. I come back far more quickly than I ever did in the past.
Yeah.
So it is just the knowing of it being there is helpful. But you can't. Do you believe that people can sustain that perfect place all the time?
I don't, I think that's very rare. I think some
Yeah.
people have complete and utter awakenings, as in their personal conditioning falls away.
Yes.
Is that my experience? No.
Yeah.
Uh, and I'm fascinated by those stories of awakening, but I don't get confused. I don't think that my experience has to be that. I'm really loving at this point in my life being grounded. And here's why, Marion. It's like everything that occurs in my life teaches me and instructs me and grows me and evolves me. So my path is perfect for me.
Yeah.
Whatever that looks like, no matter how lost I seem to get. Let's say I get into a relationship and I find myself abandoning myself again because I'm so enthralled with this person, and all before I know it, I don't want to lose them. So I'm not even conscious of the fact that I'm,
Crazy.
yeah, playing a role, wanting to do whatever it takes to keep this person interested in me. At some point, I've been there, I've done that. At some point, we wake up. At some point, if we want to, we see clearly what we're doing. And
Yeah.
in that moment, we can return home to ourselves.
Yeah.
Now, you see, whatever that looks like from the outside, or however anyone else judges that, this is my journey. My journey is what my journey is. And whatever it takes to wake me up is going to happen. And for me, in the way I see it, there's no mistake in that.
Yeah.
It's like whatever life needs to bring me to wake me up to that deeper. So it's a going in and out of it. And that's my path. I've really come to a place of acceptance of that. Like I've really come to see that once we start looking in this direction, there's no unseeing it. So there's no completely going off the path. At some point, your own wisdom is going to wake up again and you go, oh my gosh, look how lost I was in that story.
Yeah.
And this is, all I know is I'm headed in the right direction, and everything that I need is going to come into my path to allow me to be on this journey of self-awareness and awakening. And I don't need to judge that. I can trust that unfolding, and I can trust this awareness within me, this wisdom within me. And for me, Marion, it's like just being headed in the right direction, just knowing you're headed in the right direction. And then as your life unfolds, you're living this out. And I don't know how, like, I haven't taken a straight path from A to B, No, it's been a windy, twisty road, and I'm learning to appreciate all of that.
Yeah.
And through it all, I've learned that no matter who leaves me, you see, for me, everyone's path and journey is sacred. If somebody leaves me, it leaves me here for me. Like, to control another human being or to think that I know, even if they promise me, I'm going to be there for you forever. That promise depends on their degree and level of self-awareness. You know, so as we journey together, they might leave. And every time someone has left me, I've gotten to see how much am I willing to be here for me, you know.
I was just going to say that, Catherine, that I believe that we almost have to make a commitment to ourselves.
Oh,
A
for
choice,
sure.
a
Yeah.
choice commitment that we are going to be there for ourselves, listen to ourselves, do what ourselves tells us to do, let go of things. We have to be there for ourselves. And I talk to this with clients sometimes and say, you know, they say, how did you change? Well, I made that commitment that I wanted to live that life. Because otherwise, because it can be tough, can't it?
Oh,
At
yes.
first, it's
Yes.
tough to trust that it's that life is unfolding how it's meant to, that I'm hearing things that I need to listen to. I'm brave enough to hear them. So yeah, I think commitment is very important.
I love that. Marion, I used to, I was, I think I was a dense case. Like it took 2 failed marriages. It took a bunch of other failed relationships and I say that with great affection for my life and for my path. I used to judge it and be filled with shame. And then, I woke up to the fact that this was, this was just the journey that I needed to be on.
Mm.
I have a deep reverence. I have a lightheartedness now about it, where I used to be filled with shame, and all of that is a part of the awareness that your journey is sacred. Once you make a commitment to the way your own life is unfolding, and to your own increased self-awareness, everything's going to teach you. Everything's going to grow you, as long as you don't abandon yourself for the other. Now,
And
you and I.
the other could be relationship or job or
Yes,
children or whatever it is. Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. So it isn't always the big bells and whistles. It can be, do I get up and take a walk when my body is asking me to get up and do I listen
love that.
to the signals? So it can be very simple, right? It starts there. It's like, am I paying attention to my experience and the promptings, the inner promptings that I get all the time from my own inner wisdom? And as simple as, again, do I go for a walk? Do I do the things that the inner prompting is telling me to do? It might be do the dishes, clean the house, create a beautiful environment for yourself. And those little things blossom into the larger things, in my experience, Marion. It's like, I've made some big decisions, but taking the smaller steps to listen inwardly has really provided a foundation for me where I feel really grounded. And so when someone outside of me, who I care about, is making a request that I can't meet because my own inner answer is no, I can now say, I love you, and no, that doesn't feel right for me now. Whereas before, I had ignored my own inner wisdom and my own inner prompting so much that I couldn't say no until I was really effing angry.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? So I think it's important to know that we can learn to listen. If we'll do that for ourselves, begin to say, yes and no authentically with the smaller things, it'll be much easier than to show up in the world as ourselves with the big things. And that's loving ourselves.
Yeah, I love that.
Being there for ourselves. And then we're there for the world. We get to be ourselves. We get to be genuine and authentic. And Marion, that's when we really have something to offer. So
yeah, I love the way you described that, because in one long breath, you described how to, what does loving ourselves really mean, and being there for ourselves. And And more importantly, so many of my clients have said to me that they don't, when I talk about wisdom and it's talking to you and giving you little messages throughout the day, you know, do I want to eat this or do I want to eat this? All day, if you listen.
Yes,
And
yes.
they say, I don't understand what you mean, because they've been so disconnected. But
I was there. I get that. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so was I.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but suddenly when you talk about, there's a feeling that you get inside, and it's nudging you a bit. And if you take the time to slow down and actually listen, you will hear.
Yes, you will.
You need to slow down ourselves sometimes, because we're very good at thinking we know the answers of everything.
Mm-hmm.
But it's when we stop and reflect, isn't it? And take the time.
It is, Marion. And sometimes life will force that on us. Look at the pause, look at but it's always available to us. It's always available to us. And again, I love that. What I love knowing is that no matter how disconnected I felt, that was the facade.
Yeah.
And just the intention to start to listen. As I started to listen, at first there was nothing. And I really want people to hear that, because that was my experience.
Yeah.
And now, you know, that has just the intention shifted and changed things.
Mm-hmm.
And I started with the very simple things, like getting up and breathing instead of forcing myself to do something that my body wasn't ready to do. So very little steps in that direction of learning to listen, like food preferences, just all of those little choices, then something begins to blossom within you. And again, those inner promptings become more and more, they're still practical and mundane, but then the profound promptings start to happen too. And you know you can trust them. You know when the prompting is leave this job, that you can leave that job because you know you've learned to listen to that inner wisdom. And sometimes that word wisdom is too big. It's intuition. Again, it's just that inner prompting that is connected to the larger intelligence of life.
Yeah.
You know, and you know it because things start to unfold in a much more harmonious way. You become more and more grounded in your own experience rather than focused on other people and how they're responding to you. Your life doesn't depend on that anymore. Other people might disapprove because they don't get it. But you're there for yourself and you don't need them to get it in the same way that you
And it's lovely, because that's where judgment goes. You know, it starts disappearing at that point when you concentrate on yourself and your world inside and the promptings that you're getting, you become far less concerned with the outside world, because your commitment is to understand this and live with it and grow with it, and you know, all of those things. So
it's beautiful.
It's a beautiful talk today. I hope people who listen to this, How to Be There for Yourself, really hear what we're saying to them.
I hope so too. And if I could, you know, I want people to know that their journey is sacred. No matter how many failures, conventional, I want to say conventional wisdom.
Yeah.
No matter how much culture says you failed, you haven't got it, you don't have enough, you're not enough.
Yeah.
Your journey is sacred. And the moment we stop judging ourselves and the journey we've been on is the moment we begin to learn and grow and evolve from absolutely everything that's occurred. And in that, when you start to see that for yourself, your own judgments about yourself, which is what our conditioning is. I'm not good enough just as I am. I have to be this or that. When that starts to fall away, that transformation really happens. So again, it all goes back to love and acceptance. And in that, we grow and evolve and get to be on this journey, which is rich and I think infinite, you know.
Yes.
It comes back to love and acceptance for ourselves, and there's no judgment in that,
Yeah.
you know. So
That's a beautiful place to finish. It does. It comes back to love and acceptance. And when you're in the flow of that, it changes your life. So thank you, Catherine. Thank you for another great talk, and can't wait to do the next one with you, hopefully next week. So
thank you, Marion.
I will thank you very much.
I love you. Thank you very much. I hope that there's something there that'll be of service to whoever listens. So
I know
we're all there. It's going to be, you know, it's a much more beautiful world when we make the commitment to being there for ourselves. Thank you. I can't wait for next time too.
Thank you.
Take care.